They say betrayal often comes from the ones closest to you, those you trust implicitly. I never thought I'd be living proof of that statement. My name is Adam, and for the past 6 months, I've been working offshore. 2 weeks out at sea, 1 week back home. It's a grueling schedule, but it pays well, and I always thought I was building a future for Alina and me. Alina. She was the kind of woman you couldn't help but notice. Smart, funny, with a beauty that could light up the darkest room. We'd been together for 4 years, and while we weren't married, it felt like we were already living that life. I thought we had it all, but I was wrong. It started as whispers in the back of my mind, little things that didn't add up. The house smelled different when I came home, a mix of cologne and sweat that wasn't mine. Alina had become more distant, not in a way that screamed trouble, but subtle shifts that only someone who loves deeply would notice. At first, I chalked it up to my absences. Maybe she was feeling neglected, and I couldn't blame her. My job kept me away more often than not. I even began planning ways to take her with me on short vacations to make up for lost time. Then there was Victor, my driver. A man in his early 30s, quiet, reliable, the kind you'd never think twice about. He'd been working for me for nearly 2 years, ferrying Alina to and from places when I wasn't around. I trusted him like a brother, but trust is a fragile thing. The first real crack appeared one evening when I returned home earlier than planned. My crew was given a few unexpected days off after some equipment delays, and I didn't bother to let Alina know I was coming. I wanted to surprise her. It was raining heavily as I tried to get back home that evening. I thought to call Victor to come pick me as usual, but I hesitated. I ordered a cab to drop me home instead. When I arrived, the house was quiet. Alina's car was in the driveway, but she didn't come out to greet me like she usually did. My heart sank a little, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was napping or watching TV. I opened the door and called out, "Alina, I'm home." No response. I walked through the house, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. The living room was empty, as was the kitchen. My heart started racing as I made my way to the bedroom. That's when I heard it, a muffled laugh coming from upstairs. It was faint, almost drowned out by the sound of the rain pelting the windows, but it was there, a laugh I knew all too well, Alina's laugh. I stood frozen for a moment, my mind racing. Maybe she was on the phone, maybe she was watching something funny online, but something about it felt off. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. The laughter grew louder, interspersed with whispers I couldn't make out. My chest tightened as I reached the bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, and through the crack I could see movement. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I pushed the door open, and what I saw made my stomach churn. There they were, Alina and Victor, on my bed. Our bed. She was laughing, her hands on his chest, her hair a mess. Victor looked up, his eyes meeting mine, and his smile vanished. For a second, none of us moved. The room was filled with nothing but the sound of the rain and my ragged breathing. Then Alina gasped, pulling the sheets around her. "Adam, I didn't let her finish. What the hell is going on here?" My voice came out louder than I intended, shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. Victor scrambled off the bed, fumbling for his clothes. "Boss, I can explain." "Explain?" I shouted, my fists clenched at my sides. "You're sleeping with my girlfriend in my house, and you think there's an explanation?" Alina was crying now, her face buried in her hands. "Adam, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Didn't mean for this to happen?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "So what? You just tripped and fell into bed together?" Victor tried to step forward, his hands raised as if to calm me down. "Boss, listen, it's not what it looks like." I laughed bitterly. "Not what it looks like? Then please enlighten me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been screwing my girlfriend while I've been busting my ass offshore to provide for her." The anger was like a fire consuming me, but beneath it was something worse, an unbearable ache in my chest. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the life I thought I was building, the trust I thought we had. Victor grabbed his shirt and muttered something about leaving. He avoided my eyes as he bolted out of the room, leaving Alina and me alone. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. Adam, I don't know what to say. I stared at her, my mind swirling with 1,000 questions. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? Did she ever love me at all? But when I opened my mouth, all I could manage was, why? Alina sobbed harder, clutching the sheets tightly around her. I don't know, she whispered. You're always gone. And I was lonely. He was just there. Lonely? I repeated, my voice breaking. You think I wanted to be away? I was working to give us a better life, Alina. Everything I've done has been for you. She didn't respond, just sat there crying. The sight of her, the woman I'd loved so deeply, now a stranger, was too much to bear. I turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind me. Downstairs, the rain was still pouring, the sound a dull roar in the background. I grabbed my keys and left the house, not caring where I was going. I just needed to get away. For the next few days, I stayed at a hotel, ignoring Alina's calls and texts. Each one was a mix of apologies and excuses, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. I needed time to think, to process what had happened. Victor, unsurprisingly, was gone. He didn't show up for work, and I didn't bother to contact him. He was a coward, running away from the mess he'd helped create. But the real pain came from Alina. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about us, about the nights we'd spent laughing and talking, the plans we'd made for the future. Was it all a lie? A week later, I went back to the house to collect my things. Alina was there waiting for me. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Adam, please, she said as I walked in. Can we talk? I stopped staring at her. Part of me wanted to yell, to demand answers, but another part of me just felt empty. There's nothing to talk about, I said finally. You made your choice. Tears filled her eyes. It wasn't a choice. I made a mistake, a horrible, stupid mistake. But I love you, Adam. Please don't throw us away. I laughed bitterly. You threw us away the moment you decided to sleep with Victor. She tried to explain, to justify her actions, but I couldn't listen. I packed my things and left, leaving her standing in the doorway, crying. It's been 6 months since that day. I moved into a small apartment closer to the port, focusing on my work and trying to rebuild my life. Alina has tried reaching out a few times, but I've ignored her. The pain is still too raw. Betrayal leaves scars that never fully heal. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust someone like that again. But one thing I do know is this. The life I thought I had with Alina is gone, and it's time to move forward.